Welcome to Tech Spotlight, a series where I talk about the cheapest techs in the game that even the poorest players can afford. Today we are looking at Spiritual Entanglement. This card is a free-to-obtain ultra rare that you can get from one of the old events. This card has a really simple effect that allows you to target one face-up monster your opponent controls, banish it until the end phase, and also this card is hard once per turn. This effect is simple, but it is really strong. It doesn't have a cost, which a lot of the normal spells that clear opponent's monsters do. For example, Lightning Vortex needs a discard, Dark Core needs a discard, Dark Hole needs to blow up your entire field as well. This card just does it for free, which is really nice. So even if you have monsters on field, or if you don't have any cards for you to discard, you can still use this card to get rid of your opponent's monsters. And this card also does not destroy, it banishes, which gets around a lot of effects that activate when they are destroyed, or protection that prevents you from destroying their monsters with card effects. For example, if your opponent has an El Shaddai window, which has an effect that prevents it from being destroyed by card effects, you can just banish that card for free, and don't worry about its protection effect. You also don't need to worry about its graveyard effect, because usually if you send that card to the graveyard, it gets to activate its graveyard effect to add back a Shaddai spell trap from the graveyard back to the hand, but because you banished it, it won't trigger as well. It does have the downside of coming back during the end phase, which is one of the biggest detriments of this card. But if you use it on something like an Xyz monster, it is really good because it still gets rid of all of its Xyz material, so even if you don't win the turn you use this card, you still get rid of all of its Xyz material and prevent it from using any of its detach effects. And also, if you use this card, you probably will want to win the turn you use this card, so your opponent doesn't get back the monster. So you should probably use this card in a deck that OTKs as quickly as possible. And you can also use this card in combination with the Mind of the Plana skill. This skill is really good with cards that banish until the end phase, cards like Spiritual Entanglement, Burning Abyss Farfa, or Malevolent Sin. Those cards banish until the end phase, but if you use the skill to just get rid of all of your opponent's banish cards, your opponent will not get back the monster in the end phase because it is just gone forever. And there's also the obvious detriment of being a hard once per turn card, but honestly, this doesn't really come up that much. You don't really draw multiple copies of this card that often, and honestly, you can just use the second copy on another turn or something, and overall, it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, as I mentioned, this card is best used in decks that win quickly, in OTK decks, because this card is not very good going first, because your opponent doesn't have any monsters for you to banish, and it is just a normal spell card. It is not a quick play spell card, so you can't even set it and use it during your opponent's turn. That will be way too good. So this card is good for decks going second to get rid of your opponent's monsters before you commit to your combo. And this also gets rid of your opponent's interactions if they have monsters with quick effects, something like a Constellar Pleiades, or a hard to get rid monster like Ultimate Nightmare. You can just banish that monster and just do your normal combo, and it really helps you win easier. Or if you're just a new or really budget player who is really desperate for removal for monsters that you can use during your own turn, you can maybe use this card in combination with a Mind of the Plana skill in case you don't win this turn, so at least you can just get rid of that monster forever and not have to worry about it coming back to the field and haunting you. Okay, let's have a look at a replay where I use this card. And once again, just like the last video, I am using Salamangreats because this deck is really good at OTKing, and also has a really hard time getting rid of multiple monsters on field, so having a Spiritual Entanglement will really help get rid of our opponent's boards and potentially get rid of our opponent's monster interactions before we commit to our Salamangreat combo. Our opponent is playing Raging Pendulum, and they are playing a pretty weird selection of scales over here. He's playing a Stargazer and Time Gazer. Don't really know why. And he's also playing really weird pendulum monster selections as well. But that doesn't really matter. I'm only going to use this to showcase how you normally use this card. Our opponent summons a Magical Libra from deck and makes Stardust Dragon. That's interesting, but we don't have to worry about that too much because we can just use the Spiritual Entanglement and get rid of that Stardust Dragon. And because it doesn't destroy, it doesn't trigger the effect of Stardust Dragon that allows him to negate our effects, so we can just banish it for free. And now we will try to win this turn so he doesn't get back his Stardust Dragon, which we probably can, looking at the amount of extenders that we have in our hand. We can use Mia to send a Falco, and then special summon Gazelle, let's fast forward, and use Falco to bounce back Mia, Mia effect, special summon itself, link summon Security Dragon, get rid of his Xyz. We're going to link summon a Sunlight Wolf, activate the field spell, link Sunlight Wolf for Sunlight Wolf, and activate Jaguar to summon itself to the link point to grab back Gazelle, link summon Ningusu, Ningusu send the field spell to send one of his scales to the Pendulum Zone, and then activate our skill, setting 3 cards and going in for lethal.